This summer is the summer of soccer, and it's all on Paramount Plus, including the NWSL Liga MX Femenil Summer Cup. It is the inaugural tournament between these two leagues from America and from Mexico, and it all kicks off this Friday, July 19th. The first time that we are seeing this, Darian, and it really come to fruition. So I know we're going to have a lot to talk about come Monday when we are back in studio for Attacking Third and we get to recap all the games that happen. But let's just preview it a little bit, big picture, and take a look at what the Summer Cup is going to bring us. The Summer Cup is going to feature all 14 NWSL clubs and the 6 Liga MX teams with the most points achieved across the 2 different leagues in Mexico, Clausura and Apertura, during 2023. So the 6 Liga MX Femenil teams are Tigres, Club America, Chivas de Guadalajara, Rayadas de Monterrey, Pachuca, and Tijuana. So those are the 6 clubs that will be competing with and against the 14 NWSL clubs. It'll be a 33-match tournament consisting of 30 group stage contests. So the different groups each have 4 teams in them, and they will play once against every team in their group and then have a bye week. The 4-team semifinal round will take place on August 6th in Kansas City at CPKC Stadium. And then the championship match will be at Toyota Field in San Antonio, Texas. That happening Friday, October 25th. CBS Sports will be the exclusive English language distributor of all 33 Summer Cup games, with every single match set to stream live on Paramount Plus. 11 matches simulcasting on CBS Sports Golazo Network, and 12 matches simulcasting on CBS Sports Network, including the semifinals and the championship match. Attacking Third, Darian, you, me, will be covering this tournament throughout its entirety over the next several weeks, including the final that will take place October 25th. The group stage is made up of groups A, B, C, D, and E. 5 group winners. The top 4 with the most points will advance to the semifinals. So you could win your group and potentially not even advance. The way the semifinals work, there will be the top point winner against the 4th place point winner, and then the 2nd place point winner against the 3rd place point winner. Let's take a look at the groups that we have for this inaugural Summer Cup, because there are 5 groups. Group A will be Portland Thorns, Seattle Reign, Utah Royals, and Club Tijuana. Group B, Angel City, San Diego, Bay FC, and Club America. Group C, Kansas City, Houston Dash, Tigres, and Club Pachuca. Group D, Gotham, Washington, Chicago Red Stars, and Chivas de Guadalajara. And Group E, Orlando Pride, North Carolina Courage, Racing Louisville, and Rayadas de Monterrey. When you look at that group, Darian, and the 5 different potential paths for these teams, which is your group of death, if you had to say?
The group of Kansas City. I think that is going to be brutal to play against. They have everybody there. Bia might be healthy and able to get some minutes. Debinha, I don't know how Debinha didn't make the Brazilian roster, but she's going to be there. Temucha Winga is going to be there. It's going to be unstoppable. I think what we've seen with Kansas City, they're just going to build on, especially coming off of a loss against Orlando, their first loss. They're going to want to prove that that was just a fluke, and come in, work on the defensive part of their game, work on scoring even more goals, which sounds insane. But to me, that is the group of death, along with Tigres. I'm excited to see that matchup because defensively, I think they're a little bit more solid than some of the other teams in this. So that's a game I'm really looking forward to. But in my opinion, any group with Kansas City is for sure the group of death. What about you?
Absolutely rough. Yeah, I mean, even when you look at the other NWSL team that's in Group C with Kansas City, it's Houston Dash, who are bottom of the table. They're sitting
Rough.
2 from the bottom in the NWSL standings. They've had a rough go of it this year. And then against Tigres, which is going to give Kansas City a run for their money, I think. That is a matchup I am really excited to see between Kansas City and Tigres. I agree. I think that it's a tough group. Group E also looks pretty rough for me. Orlando Pride, North Carolina Courage, Racing Louisville, and Monterrey. Orlando Pride has been on a run this season. And although they are without a chunk of their players heading into this Summer Cup due to the Olympics, Seb Hines has proven that he has depth at his squad, and he has the ability to rotate players in and around, and they're all on the same game plan. North Carolina has struggled. They've had some ups and downs throughout the NWSL regular season, and this is going to be a chance for them to get some redemption and get out of the group. When you look at the overall of this tournament, you can't just win your group to advance. You have to have more points because there are 5 groups and only the top 4 teams advance to the semis. It's absolutely bonkers if you think of it like that. How do
It's
you approach
NWSL. Of course it's bonkers. Of
how do
course
you
it's gonna
approach
be a
that?
little more complex. Oh, you've got to score some goals. You have to score in every category. You have to be defensively solid. I think you really have to have a full, well-rounded 90 every single game, which is going to be really tough. Really, really tough. You're missing a lot of your key players that bring consistency, that define your style of play as a club, that are at the Olympics. Um, it's going to be really difficult to do so. I think it's going to be a little bit more chaotic than we're giving it credit for because it's a lot of games. Players get knocks. You're going to have to adjust to what teams are giving you. A lot of these teams are unfamiliar, have never played each other.
Mhm.
So I'm excited for it. I'm here for the chaos. It's NWSL as NWSLing. Yeah, let's see
Best
what
way
happens.
to put it, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, a lot of the NWSL clubs are playing against unfamiliar territory with the Liga
Mhm.
MX clubs. But even I'm going to argue that NWSL clubs against NWSL clubs are going to
Yeah.
look so different because they have depth players now getting starts or national team replacement players that have just been signed to clubs that will get minutes. It'll be an entirely different look. So, what kind of is the point of this? Like for clubs, right? If you take it from the club perspective, what is the point of this?
You're going to flex your depth. Let's see how you recruited. Let's see how you're developing players. Let's see how you're sharing the wealth of playing time and how game realistic you can make training for players that never see the pitch at
It's
a
hard.
game level. Yeah, it's really difficult because there's not that much time to do so. You have to pick a select roster. You want certain players to have chemistry with each other on the field. And now we're really going to see who bulked up, who's doing it right, who really has that defined style of play, who really has everybody bought in, even if you're a national team replacement player on this roster. It's going to be tough. It's going to be competitive. I think we're going to see teams play completely different than actually we've seen. I think certain teams that lost a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
players, we'll see. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be a big tell all of who's really done it this
It's
year
like
and developed their
peeling
team.
back the covers and being like,
Yep.
all right, what are you
What you
actually
got?
like?
Yeah.
Is there anything wrong at the foundation or how solid is your foundation of football?
Who have you relied on too much that when they're out, it changes how you guys look, how you play, how effective you are. It's gonna be very revealing to say the least.
What is one of those teams that you think may have relied on players?
Uh,
Orlando, they're going to be without Marta, without Banda.
I actually think Orlando's gonna be okay. They're not a team that I'm worried about in any way, actually. I think we've seen them when they've had a lot of injuries this year and they've been fine. Yes, Banda's been a big factor, but I do think they still have that X factor up top. Maybe not as many flashy goals as we've seen them score as of late, but I think that they'll be solid. I've got to
Jenna
think.
joining us live on YouTube
I,
says she's excited to see Gotham play and
I
how
was
they're
about to say Gotham. They're missing a lot of their personality players, that I think we've seen. Last year, they had more of that underdog, that blue collar type of style of play, that mentality, where sometimes we saw those moments of like really beautiful key plays. They still have a lot of key players, but I don't know if it's going to be as poetic as we've seen them play, as smooth as they are on the ball. You don't have a Rose Lavelle, which any team she's on, she changes the way that they play. Everything goes through her. And they've been
We
questionable a bit with letting teams go over the top, be a little bit more direct. If I'm an opponent looking at playing Gotham, I'm thinking bomb it over. They play a high line. They're missing their really big players that are most effective on their team, I'll say, in their attack. So that's probably the team I'm thinking is going to be asked a lot of questions.
Dun, 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 dun. Gotham is in a group with Washington Spirit, Chicago Red Stars, and Chivas de Guadalajara. And Gotham we could potentially see them revert back to 2023 Gotham that did win the championship, but it was a gritty blue collar, get stuck into tackles, play for one another. It didn't have a lot of superstars. It didn't. It truly didn't. And that's what made up so much of the successful DNA that Gotham had in 2023.
I'll say Washington Spirit too.
Yeah.
That's going to be quite different. I'm excited to see Ashley Hatch get some minutes, though. Justice for Ashley Hatch.
Right.
I think she's a great player. Obviously, they've been a stacked team where you really have to fight for your minutes, but they have shown that there's weaknesses defensively for them. They can be quite transitional. You're missing Kruger, you're missing Rodman, Corey Bethune, who just
Hal
brings
Hirschfeld.
together everything. Hal Hirschfeld, my word, it's going to be very different. New coach coming in, like what are they going to look like? I have no idea, but I can't wait for it.
That's fun. That'll be really interesting to watch Group D, see how it all unfolds because Chicago Red Stars are also in that group with Gotham, Washington, and Chivas de Guadalajara, who is without Mallory Swanson, who has been the backbone of that team. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's just going to be so interesting to watch this all unfold and watch with Liga MX clubs advance. And I hope they do. I hope
I
this
hope
is a
so too.
chance for them to prove, right? Cross countries. And I think there is somewhat of a stigma for teams going to Liga MX Femenil when that is not the case at all. I mean, you look at Tigres, they have been a powerhouse in Mexico, winning the fall league, the spring league, just being absolutely dominant. They have to bring that in this tournament and prove why they deserve to be looked at in comparison because there's been a lot of talk about like, oh, why are clubs going there? If players withdraw from the draft and they choose to go play in Mexico, it seemed as maybe a negative at times when that's not at all the case. Not at all the case. This is going to open up a whole new fan base to Liga MX Femenil, which I'm actually really excited about. I'm really
I am
excited
too.
about.
And vice versa.
Exactly. All the Mexican fans to find a team in the NWSL that they can get behind and support a little bit. We talked about the groups and the teams that are going to miss a lot of players. But there's a very interesting wrinkle with this Summer Cup because the semifinals take place on August 6th. But then the final doesn't happen until October 25th. A huge gap.
NWSL.
How different could the rosters look from the semifinal to the final?
Completely. You'll have players back that, again, what we were just saying, completely adjust your style of play, how you approach games, how you're looking to score goals and break teams down, how you set up defensively. You could have two completely different team/style of play from the semifinal to the final. The tournament's a little ridiculous to me in that it's like that. It's so many games, and then you have this large break
3
until
months.
the final. Like,
3 months. That's like an off season.
it's really odd. You could have a completely different roster at that
Yeah.
point. Like, I don't know. I really dislike that part about it. I don't think it makes sense. Especially when you're looking at the players that are getting a lot of opportunity. I mean, national team replacement players are no longer going to be there. Maybe they're having a stellar tournament. They're showing out. They are deserving of a spot. They want to finish this out, which rightfully so. You're not able to be there because your roster spot is now given back to who originally has it. It's very odd, but it'll almost feel like a different tournament. It'll feel like a preseason game almost.
And mind you, NWSL clubs in the end of October will be in the midst of playoffs, in the playoff hunt, in a playoff race, a hunt for the Shield championship, but also potentially in the hunt for the Summer Cup trophy. So
it's giving Challenge Cup 2 years ago where we were all hating it. I mean, when as a player, I hated it. I thought it was so unnecessary, a wrench in the middle of the season. I would just rather added a couple more games into the year as opposed to doing a whole tournament where you're playing every 3 days. You have a lot of injuries. Final doesn't make sense. It just becomes too much. You play the same team 3 times in a row. Like it can just be a little bit ridiculous. I know this isn't the same, but we do have a lot of NWSL teams that we've seen these matchups numerous times now that we're going to see again in this tournament. I actually wish there were more Mexican teams involved in this and it was more even between the two.
And not all 14 NWSL clubs?
Yes.
Ooh, I like that. That could be interesting.
Yeah, like if we're having this tournament, the point is to spread the wealth, to give visibility to more teams, to share the fan base, to show the competition, and think about the looks that players maybe in the NWSL that are looking to go, wanting to play abroad, wanting to go into the Mexican League, and same with vice versa. The Mexican players looking to come to the NWSL. This gives really good looks. That's a big opportunity for coaches, for the league, to see. Oh, that's a player I didn't know about, or that was underrated, or that flew under the radar, and look at how they've developed, look at how effective they are in this game. That's a big opportunity. So I think that was a big miss in my opinion, to not share the wealth a little bit and even the tournament out as a matter of how many teams from each league are in it. But next year, I mean, it's the first
Hey,
time,
it's a
and so I
trial.
think it's better.
It's the
It's a baby.
inaugural tournament between these two sides. Okay, very quickly before we go to break, pick who is gonna win
Oh,
this
Kansas
entire
City.
tournament.
I think Kansas City will.
The only hiccup is T. Grace could knock some points off of
The
Kansas City.
only hiccup, and then maybe other teams will triple down on Chewinga and try to
Yeah,
shut them down, but Kansas City's proven they can score so many goals, and that's ultimately what it's gonna come down to, and the best, even when they got a loss, they still can't stop everybody on Kansas City.
it's true. I like that
Yeah.
shout for Kansas City
What
too.
about you?
I'm gonna go Kansas City too. I think that Group C is just too lethal. It's just so crazy that they I mean, there's one group that is not gonna have any teams come out of it, and, like, what if that just happens to be Kansas City and Tigres from that group? Like, only one of
Like,
those
that's
teams can.
crazy.
I know. I know, but you
Ugh,
of course, when these groups were made, we didn't know how good these teams were. We didn't predict that Kansas City was gonna be top of the table, undefeated through
fair.
the first 15 weeks of the season, only one loss so far. You didn't know that that was gonna happen for Kansas City and that they would have very little people heading to the Olympics, and their roster would pretty much stay intact. Makes for an interesting Summer Cup. You can watch the NWSL Liga MX Summer Cup across CBS Sports and Paramount Plus. We'll be talking all about it on Attacking Third. You don't want to miss it. It kicks off this Friday, July 19th.